On the evening of January 1st, 1978, the city of Bombay sparkled with New Year's hope. At Santa Cruz Airport, Air India Flight 855, a majestic Boeing 747, prepared to fly to Dubai, carrying 213 souls. But just minutes after takeoff, as the plane crossed the darkened Arabian Sea, a single moment of confusion in the cockpit turned the routine flight into one of India's darkest aviation tragedies. On January 1st, 1978, the tarmac of Bombay's Santa Cruz Airport, now Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj International Airport, buzzed with the quiet anticipation of a new year. Air India Flight 855, a Boeing 747 called Emperor Ashoka, stood as a symbol of national pride. Delivered to Air India in April 1971, it was the airline's first 747, marketed as your palace in the sky. Its luxurious interiors featured a first-class lounge, adorned with vibrant murals depicting Indian mythology, a testament of the airline's ambition to blend cultural heritage with modern aviation. The aircraft, powered by 4 Pratt & Whitney JT9D-7G engines, was scheduled to fly to Dubai carrying 190 passengers and 23 crew members, including 20 cabin crew and 3 in the cockpit. The passenger manifest included Indian families, expatriates, and business travelers, many returning to the Gulf after New Year's celebration or embarking on new ventures in 1978. The flight had been delayed from its original morning departure due to a technical issue from the previous day. A bird struck to a wing flap during a flight from New York to Bombay via London. Engineers had worked through December 31st to repair the damage, ensuring the aircraft was cleared for its evening departure. As families said their goodbyes at the terminal and crew members conducted final checks, there was no hint of the tragedy that would unfold within minutes. The cockpit was manned by a trio of highly experienced aviators. Captain Madan Lal Kukar, aged 51, had joined Air India in 1956, logging nearly 18,000 flight hours, including extensive experience on the Boeing 747. Known for his calm demeanor, Kukar was a respected figure in the airline's ranks. First Officer Indu Virmani, aged 43, brought a distinguished background as a former Indian Air Force Wing Commander, joining Air India in 1976 with over 4,500 flight hours. His transition from military to commercial aviation had earned him a reputation for precision. Flight engineer Alfredo Faria, aged 53, was one of Air India's most senior engineers, with 11,000 flight hours since 1955. His role was critical in monitoring the 747's complex systems. Together they formed a crew whose combined expertise inspired confidence, yet the chain of events that night would test the limits of human judgment and technology. At approximately 8:40 p.m. after sunset, Emperor Ashoka thundered down runway 27 and lifted into the night sky. The weather was clear, with no turbulence or adverse conditions reported. Air traffic control instructed the crew to report passing 8,000 feet, to which Captain Kukar responded with a touch of festive cheer. "Happy New Year to you, sir." The controller stationed in the Santa Cruz Tower reciprocated warmly, unaware that this exchange would mark the final communication from Flight 855. As the aircraft crossed the Bombay coastline over the Arabian Sea, Kukar executed a standard right turn, aligning with the flight path to Dubai. The plane briefly leveled off, its wings returning to a neutral position, and the city's twinkling lights faded into the distance. The Arabian Sea stretched out below, a vast expanse of darkness with no visible horizon, a challenging environment for pilots relying solely on instruments. In the cockpit, the crew monitored their panels, illuminated by the soft glow of dials and screens. The Boeing 747 was equipped with the state-of-the-art avionics for its time, including dual attitude director indicators for the captain and first officer, a backup attitude director indicator on the central panel, and other instruments like the turn and bank indicator. These tools were designed to provide a clear picture of the aircraft's orientation, critical for safe navigation in the absence of visual cues. Moments after leveling off, a critical failure occurred. The captain's attitude director indicator, a gyroscopic instrument displaying the aircraft's pitch and roll, malfunctioned, freezing to show a persistent right bank. Kukar, trusting his primary instrument, remarked with alarm, "What's happened here? My instrument!" The faulty attitude director indicator suggested the plane was tilting right, prompting him to consider corrective action. Meanwhile, First Officer Vernami's attitude director indicator, presumably functioning correctly, began to show a left bank as the aircraft's actual orientation shifted. Vermani's response, "Mine has also toppled, looks fine," likely referred to his attitude director indicator indicating the plane's true leftward tilt, but the ambiguous phrasing led to a catastrophic misunderstanding. Investigators later posited that Cooker interpreted Vernami's comment as confirmation that both attitude director indicators showed the right bank, reinforcing his incorrect perception. The 747's cockpit included a third backup attitude director indicator and other instruments that could have resolved the discrepancy. Flight engineer Faria, monitoring the systems, sensed the danger. Just 5 seconds before the crash, the cockpit voice recorder captured his frantic warning. "Don't go by that one! Don't go by that one!" He was likely urging Cooker to consult the backup attitude director indicator or the turn and bank indicator, which would have shown the aircraft's true attitude. But the urgency of the moment, combined with the crew's reliance on their primary instruments, left no time for effective cross-checking. Cooker, still trusting his faulty attitude director indicator, applied left rudder and aileron inputs, intensifying the left bank. The aircraft rolled to a perilous 108-degree angle, far beyond recovery, and pitched into a 35-degree nose-down dive. At 8:41 p.m., just 100 seconds after takeoff, Flight 855 slammed into the shallow waters of the Arabian Sea, approximately 3 kilometers off Bandra's coast. The impact at 45-degree angle was cataclysmic. Witnesses on shore, including an Indian Navy commander strolling along Bandra Bandstand, described a brilliant fireball and a deafening explosion as the Emperor Ashoka disintegrated. All 213 souls on board, 180 passengers, 20 flight attendants and the 3 cockpit crew members perished instantly. Among them were families, young professionals and elderly travelers, their stories abruptly silenced in the dark waters. The crash triggered an immediate response. The Indian Navy commander who witnessed the fireball alerted authorities, and within minutes, the Navy, Air Force and Coast Guard launched a coordinated rescue operation. The rescue team scanned the water for life rafts or jackets, but the scene was grim. Only wreckage bobbed in the waves. The operation shifted to recovering debris and the flight recorders, which were critical to understanding the cause. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation led the investigation, analyzing the cockpit voice recorder and partially recovered flight data recorder. The findings pointed to Captain Cooker's spatial disorientation, induced by the faulty attitude director indicator, exacerbated by irrational control inputs and the failure to cross-check other instruments. The crew's brief, ambiguous exchange in the cockpit highlighted a breakdown in crew resource management, a concept still in its infancy in 1978. Initial speculation of sabotage fueled by witness reports of an explosion was dispelled after forensic analysis found no evidence of bombs or in-flight fire. The attitude director indicator failure, likely due to a gyroscopic malfunction, emerged as the primary culprit. The tragedy of Flight 855, known locally as the Bandstand Air Crash, was Air India's deadliest disaster until the 1985 bombing of Flight 182 and India's worst aviation accident until the 1996 Charkley-Dadri collision. It exposed critical vulnerabilities in aviation safety, particularly the dangers of spatial disorientation and the need for robust crew resource management. The crash prompted Air India and global aviation authorities to enhance pilot training for night operations, emphasize instrument cross-checking, and improve attitude director indicator reliability. The story of Emperor Ashoka remains a poignant reminder of aviation's fragility, a moment when a single instrument failure and a fleeting miscommunication turned a routine flight into a national tragedy.